When it comes to EVE Online, every player wants to know the most effective tactic available. You want to know the meta. The meta controls everything. It determines what will and will not happen. Knowing the meta will alter your views, make you question your reality. It might even make you laugh. And now, you're part of it. You're watching The Meta Show.
Welcome to this week's episode of The Meta Show. And I'm glad we're able to start The Meta Show out in the first few minutes of The Meta Show today with a technical error. Dave, I appreciate you, and I love you for it.
There we go. It's because Rots turned his camera off as I pressed the button.
I unplugged it. I'm so sorry.
You're okay.
I was like, ooh.
You're okay, but thank you, everybody, for coming to this week's episode of The Meta Show. We have another exciting episode today. We've got Rots with us on camera. We'll have YoungPuke joining us here in a little bit. He is currently predisposed with his interview with CCP. He should be with us in about 30 minutes. So definitely appreciate you those tuning in. I know, T-Borg, you mentioned there was some issues with the music there. We'll definitely look into that with our higher up people who are responsible for that piece. I don't think that's something Dave can
it sounded fine to me. The track is fine. I don't know why it's sounding different to other people. It could just be internet problems.
Yeah, we definitely take a look at it though. So we'll get that sorted because we don't want you to whatever. So we're going to talk to our CSM candidates today. Give them an opportunity to educate you on what their platform is. And as many of you are viewers who are part of the Imperium, that kind of thing, may already be familiar with ROTS stuff. We do have viewers from other groups who might be like, hey, what does ROTS do? So without further ado, Dave, take us out to our main topic, story, show thing that I never get right. Awesome. Well, again, like I said, we have Rots with us today. And Rots, I'm going to give the floor to you. And you got some questions in chat. Maybe you want to address. It's up to you. The next about 10, 15 minutes are going to be your time. Tell us about you and your CSM campaign, sir.
10 or 15 minutes? This is, oh man, I'll fill it. But I was not prepared for this. No, I'm Rots Mijnwerker. I run a corporation called Into the Ether, and we run Out of the Blue. And I'm their alliance lead. Hello, friends. I am running on a campaign that's about community and small groups and medium groups as an Imperium candidate. So it's a little bit different for a lot of people. You'll see in there as well, I have a lot of quality of life changes. I'm a quality of life guy, but really my big thing is about alliance and corporation tab mechanics and making it easier for communities to come together. That's what I care about. And then someone was like, hey, why do you give up the anti-no block life? I did not give it up. Our group was getting burnt out, so we voted to join our friends in Imperium. They're pretty cool. It's been an adjustment. It's fun, just to answer you outright. Yeah, that's me in a nutshell, pretty much.
Oh, that's awesome. And it's kind of cool seeing, like, from the Imperium aspect, like, you're running on more of a platform to advocate for, like, the smaller groups. And that's something I've always had, like, a passion for, is a smaller term alliance, that kind of stuff. And looking through, like, a community engagement piece, your CSM post there on the forums. Dave, I don't know if you have that. If you want to drop that into our chat.
You just did, yeah.
So alliance tournament marketing and growth. What are some, like, can you go into a little more detail on, like, kind of what your vision for that is? That's something that's close to me. That's what I'm asking.
Okay, so I have been in the AT twice in my EVE career, both times dying in a Merlin valiantly. I remember when I was but a wee young warthog, that the Alliance tournament felt a lot more present. I think we're now, however many years into EVE Online, we're at CSM 20. And I'd love to see more brackets. I'd love to see a lot more hype. And I'd love to see a lot more dynamic engagement with the community than what is tried and true with the AT. I'll admit, last year I didn't follow it because I missed it, and that was weird for me. And I felt that way for a while. I'd love to see the AT kind of jump up, and that was my dog's ears in the background. Sorry. And yeah, that's the nitty gritty about that.
Yeah, no, I too. It's been a couple years since I've been in the AT. I wanted to get into it this year. Kind of missed the cutoff on my piece to get involved with a group. So T-Borg asks, how much does it generally cost to sign up for the AT? Is there still a Plex cost to get your team in the AT now?
I
Can't remember.
To be honest with you, I don't remember either. I think there is. I think there actually is. Yeah.
So it used to be T-Borg. It used to be what was it, a raffle system, and you basically how much ISK or Plex you put into it increased your odds to get selected. Now they do a feeders, which were happened last month in October. It's open to anybody to go into feeders. I don't know if there's a flat Plex cost to sign your team up. It could be I'm going to guess anywhere between 3,000 to 5,000 Plex, somewhere in that thing there. So yeah, don't want to go off there. Rots, one of the other things I think I was reading through this, renewed test server access. What does that bring to the community, and why do you feel passionate about it?
I am going to probably say I'm maybe a third of the community, because there's probably a third that don't care, a third that are like no, and a third that care about it. I am one of those people, being neurospicy, being who I am. I love to test things. I love to do stuff before I implement it. That's how I've always been. But I do see the downsides of that. A lot of people said, people were utilizing the test server to affect things in the actual online servers that were on Trank, that were detrimental to the community as a whole, which I get. I think if someone asked me this recently, what could I see that look like? I would love it to be maybe, I don't know, once a month, 1 or 2 days out of the month. It doesn't need to be all the time. But having access to the server once the first mirror of changes has come out, or something similar. What I don't like right now is you run the risk of new changes coming, which has happened a few times now, and they are just horrible, and we're testing them in practice, or dealing with it in practice on the live server. I think that is what I would love to avoid.
Go ahead, Dave.
I have a note on that as well. The test server is also very useful for things like training, to be honest. Because I've done quite a few capital training things on there to just teach people how to use their carrier. Because if you try and do it on TQ, the person's just got into a big shiny ship, they're going to get caught the second they try and learn how to use it, and they're never going to get into it again. And we keep saying we want capital fights and dread fights. Players won't get into it if they don't know how to use their ship. So even with the once monthly thing, alliances can do a training op. Like Goons and Brave did one on there the other weekend, where Brave were trying to defend an anchoring fort, and me and Llama kind of clubbed them. But it helps people, especially content creators in the game like FCs, learn stuff. Because the only way you're going to see these capital fights is if you have more people that are more willing to throw those capitals, be it the line members or the FCs. And if they've already lost a capital on the test server, they've already experienced it, they get a gist of what's going to happen. And the FCs can get that experience that, honestly, you don't get in TQ and never will unless you already know how to do it.
Agreed. I mean, you could draw a very similar line of, it was Goons who tested the Titan, what was it, Bosons? It was the 12 Titans, and then trying to implement, and it didn't quite work. But the reason they implemented is because they tested and thought they had a good chance. I mean, someone got some Titan kills out of it, but at the end of the day, they tested it on the server, and it was pretty well known that that's what they did. They said, here's what we were thinking. And I forget when that was, but it was wonderful. I mean, that was a great experience, a good how to use the test server in a way that, lets you do something in the game that might be fun.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. I end up playing whole battles out in Pyfa, and while that's great and all, it's not doesn't translate always well. Like you have players with varying different skills and experience, and that's Pyfa's in a vacuum, right? Like it's a perfect world.
Agreed.
So I think like the test server would be a great place to bring back and have that kind of little less meat in the game to test those things, like you said. So moving on to some other things, and I think these are some pretty big topics that our viewers and everybody else, you care about, right? Ants and Black's jump gates, jump bridges.
Oof.
I've had some
If I got money for every
opinions
time I
on
heard
jump
that.
bridges, but I'd love to hear your thoughts. And I know this is something that I think this is similar to your views that were on your CSM 19 campaign, but also want to hear for our viewers who aren't familiar with that. What are your thoughts on jump bridges?
Well, I can hear Phantomite screaming from his front yard like an old man, because projection comes to play. I think jump bridges are in need of some amount of balancing that reduces projection overall. For me, that could be a number of things. So a lot of people, like last year, the thought was, I believe, similar to like Dark Shines over in Init, is the Alliance who drops it uses it, and they own both sides. I don't think with the current Sob mechanics that's entirely practical for the day-to-day player, because I think a lot of people miss the fact that for a change like projection to that to happen, you still need to give a carrot to a block member. Like at the end of the day, it can't hurt everyone in such a dramatic way. The day-to-day player who just wants to take the retriever through the gate shouldn't be affected as much. Maybe it's the amount of mass that can go through the gate at a given time. Maybe it is where a gate is allowed to be located. Maybe it's 2 systems apart. Maybe it's the actual length, light years a gate can stretch to. Maybe we're talking about that. Maybe we're just adding more gates, but because of that, you've added fuel cost, LO, tedium. I don't believe in tedium, but I've heard a lot of things said. For me, YoungPuke and a guy over in Triumvirate, Garst, it really came down to, we like the mass mechanics one. Is a certain amount of mass through the jump bridge at a certain period of time might be something that works. And so the everyday player isn't hurt as much. I think big space empires who have done the work to be big space empires should be able to enjoy their space. I do, however, think that long distance projection of large fleets to maybe low sec or elsewhere to affect another fight maybe isn't what I want to see. So that's what I want to fix.
Awesome. Yeah, I know. I'm of the same realm of I don't like how jump bridges, what the mechanic is behind it, and definitely agree. From my viewpoint as a potential voter or whatever, like there does need to be some balance further on jump bridges. And I think there's some folks who said remove ACLs on jump bridges. I think there's a lot that gets missed where like you have logistics arms of a lot of alliances that are not in the actual alliance main. So I don't know how feasible that is, because it starts to impact, like to your point, like the smaller guy. So don't know if that's the right answer, but it's awesome to hear what your views on that are. One of the other ones that I like, and there's a part to this, and I think we've talked about this a little bit, is you mentioned go on like mobile structures. So Merc dens, Metnox siphons, which I think is great. And then one of the other ones is, and I'd love to hear if this is even on your radar, like, is there any chance we could see the sovereignty blocker units come back, the SBUs?
You were in an interview. I brought those up. I mean, I'm a huge fan of SBUs. I grew up in that day and age of Eve. I don't know if it needs to be an SBU, but I think a deployable that can tank more than a fleet of Kikis, that does affect the SOV hub or items in a system that isn't exactly jumping straight to Fozzie SOV, is another really good mechanic for creating fights. I think drop something somewhere that elicits a fight. And for people who don't know what they were, SBUs were sovereignty blockade units. They were in the OG system. So you would drop 51% of the gates in the system. Let's say a GRHS in the middle of Wicked Creek. I think it has 4 systems. You'd have to drop on 3 gates, 51% of the gates in the system to actually affect the structures. Then they became vulnerable. So there was an inherent threat. But if you wanted to be like, hey, I'm not here for your SOV, you drop one or two. It wouldn't be a direct threat until they didn't show up. It was the dinner bell before the jump bridge. And for me, it was easy to have your EU folk go into system. They had a fleet say, hey, yo, EUFC, back then it was Travis Muskrat. Hey, can you go drop an SBU? And then 4 hours later, I log in and boom, we're having a fight over it, or we're not. We're dropping another one. But it was a whole night of content. There was just a timer ticking. There was urgency. There was some fun to it. And it caused capitals to be on grid a lot more. Escalation chain happened naturally. I miss SBUs. I miss the functionality of them. So a deployable like that would be great.
Yeah, I definitely. Go ahead, Dave.
Oh, I was just going to say, yeah, SOV definitely needs something to force a fight. Because at the moment, I could go iHub, and if the alliance that I ref don't care about it, they will just sit there and let you do it.
Yep.
Because it's easier, or it may just be too tedious to do that constellation at the time it comes out. Whereas if it was over a fight and not sitting there for 15 minutes holding your ass while the module cycles, it may cause more SOV change, more fights over that in general. Because at the moment, I could take my 30 ults and go take an iHub, which is ridiculous.
It's just monotonous gameplay right now. I think a lot of the things I want to see are something that enriches SOV warfare in a way that makes it worth doing. I think right now everyone loses patience. The gaming base or our player base is relatively older. I got a beard now, and at the end of the day, it's not fun. My 4 hours a day after I get out of work, I just want to go throw down. That's what I want to do. And that's why first person shooters will get my attention at all, is because I'm quickly in the action. So what can I do that quickly gets me in the action, quickly makes risk happen for both sides? Like, risk is a part of EVE that needs to be a thing. With higher risk, higher reward. But with higher risk, hopefully more fights. That's what I would love. And my favorite person just entered the channel. Just letting you know.
Man.
He's here. But like, for real, those are the things I really would care about.
Yeah. Hey, YoungPuke. Thanks for joining us, everybody. YoungPuke2 here. Current CSM and CSM candidate, just hopped on channel here. YoungPuke, we're just talking to Rots, and we'll kind of wrap this up here in a couple minutes, and then we will chat with you in a second. So,
Hell yeah.
No, I think like the mobile, SBUs, and then also you mentioned the Metnox siphons. Is that like, why do I feel like that's actually in the game? Is it not? Or we just
they did it for passes.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right. So they did it for passes, and this is like kind of a similar aspect, right? Like, so like, what are your thoughts, like your ideas around the Metnox siphons?
My ideas are, as a little dude back then, I made money off of them, but I also had small fights. There was always someone that was very mad that you siphoned their moon. It was very fun, but it wasn't a whole fleet. It was usually like 8 guys are like, you're doing our moon all wrong. And we would have a fight over my siphon unit that cost me 50 mil. There was some fun about that. I think what siphons actually drive is the other change in the campaign post. And this one, I can't take all the credit for it. This was Murray Rothberto out of Roe Capel. And I love Murray. And Murray is like, hey, we need to adjust Metnoxes in a fashion that allows R4s, R8s, and R16s to be uplifted, because right now they've tanked. And the reason is passive moon income off of Metnoxes. They indiscriminately mine 40% of it. So it is just 40% of whatever's on the moon. Whereas before, in the old system where we didn't have passive moon mining, people would skip over the R4s, R16s, that kind of thing. So the market's tanked now. I think siphon units would actually add to that. I think they could drive the market up as well. I love things that affect income. Not totally adversely. I don't want someone's full income off their moon to be grabbed, but a little goes a long way across, however many moons in EVE. Quite fun.
Yeah, no, 100%. I agree. And I love the idea of being able to, when coming from the smaller group gameplay, now I'm in Sedition and we're just bullies to everybody in LoSec, but coming from a small group gameplay, being able to impact like larger groups and Kind of in a way to be able to, if you're our smaller group or whatever, to be able to almost live off that. So, no, really cool ideas, Rots. I love kind of what your campaign is and being still in the Imperium, but not forgetting about the little guy. I think is awesome. So, but we're gonna wrap up here, Rots. We're gonna come back to you. I want to give Puke an opportunity to go through and kind of pitch his campaign there. Puke, welcome to the Meta Show today. I know you've been on several times. And thank you for coming on and talking about you and what you're going to bring our viewers. So, without further ado, Puke, I'm going to give you the floor, sir.
You're gonna turn your camera on, by the way.
Maybe. Are you in a pirate suit today, Puke?
It's in a T-Rex suit.
Something like that. He's muted. You're muted on Discord, by the way, Puke.
Oh no,
damn.
come back.
1 second. Am I
For
on
once,
stream?
yes, you are. Yes.
Oh, okay, cool. So let's see. What was the question? Sorry, I got game jammed up the wazoo right now. What was the question?
I am giving you the floor, sir, to talk about your campaign.
Oh
and
yes,
who
yes. So
Young
I'm
Puke
running
is.
as a mid-scale low sec, basically low sec faction warfare alliance. Really focusing though on the advocating on behalf of really like improving the quality of life and growth of small to medium groups. As Rots himself has always been advocating for as well, is that there's a lot of big problems in relation to, um, and like really in relation to like the growth of these groups. These groups are dying. These people are complaining that they're fighting the same groups over and over. They they are like bored, and it's the same repetitive content. The PvE is the same. Everything's sort of like very stale that a lot of people are telling me. And I think that we really need to fix that. So how we fix that? I think there's a couple areas that we can really fix it, specifically revamping PvE to be more group centric. Like DED sites, PvE sites, and all these other type of sites, they're all so repetitive. They're the same. You kill the same rats, and it's just isolating and boring. Imagine if there was like group centric, like battlefields, ice heists. Like those bring consistent fights. Yeah, they're not 100 billion as fights, but they're good size fights consistently. And I just think that we really, really need to like fix this, because I think it gives you space then for these smaller low sec groups. Like my good colleague Rots did say is like siphons. Imagine if you can raid Metanoxes, right, in low sec. Right, blocks
100%.
don't want They don't want people to raid their space. That's why they advocated for nerfs of skyhooks. Fuck it, put it in low sec, right? Like let people raid my space. I want people to be shooting my stuff. I want people to be doing stuff towards us. Oh my god. And I just find it absolutely, I don't know, it's just like it's weird. Like wormholes. Wormholes want more people. Revamp these systems. And I think people forget too, like where we were pre-uprising. Eve was like on its knees pre-uprising. USTZ was like 12k players. Does anyone remember that? There was like nobody playing in
It was
2021.
a dark time.
And that's, guys, that's 4 years ago. That is literally 4 years ago. That's it. That's nothing in the state of Eve. That's like a quarter of its life. And like I don't want to head back there again. And we need to improve these ecosystems like wormholes so we get more blood in there. We need to improve low sec to get more life in there. We need to improve high sec so we can get more life and more diversity of groups. So it's not just like absolute order, sicko, these big ones. Where's the small groups? Where are they? And Rots, people shit on Rots. He joined Goons and joined the block. What fucking choice he has? What choice? Where is Rots going to go? Right? Where is he going to go? He's going to go to Delve Aquarius? Maybe if there's space. He's going to go be a init pet? Like Try? No. Where is he going to go? There's nowhere to go. So groups, mid-scale groups, you can't blame him for joining Imperium. I commend him for keeping his alliance alive. Like why? Like I read that on your forum post, dude. I got so fucking pissed for you because it's bullshit. It's a twist, right? Because there's no choice. You have no choice. You join the blob or you die. And I think that's a problem. It's boring. If you're a new player, sorry, I'm getting on a rant, but like every Eve ad said, you can make your story. Like it does. You can be whatever you want with an asterisk now. You can't. You really can't. Literally, you can't go into nullsec unless you're a certain size. And as groups get bigger and bigger and bigger, that you need to be X amount of tall to enter this space gets taller and taller and taller. That is a problem, right? It wasn't. People remember M2. I remember M2. I remember when Goons. I remember when Dave was there too, and it was tons of fun. Like during the M2 Keepstar fights, people want more. People want more. Let's get more. This defensive. I know I'm gonna preach to the Goons in here. This defensive posture on Horde, right? Sure, there's like skirmishing back and forth, but where's the bangs? Where's the explosions? Where's the memories? Where is that? Why don't fight? Fight
That's
for
the
fun.
on
And
that. Sorry to interrupt. On that as well. Horde are just as you said, Horde are just sitting there in their little cocoon. They haven't once really tried to push back. They're just sitting there being happy little crabs because I don't think they've got the fight in them, which is another issue. They've gotten so comfortable that they don't have the fight because there's nothing to cause them to need to. Yeah.
Yeah, dude. So there's just like no areas. Yeah, there's no need to, and that's the problem, right? Like I've been talking to all these alliances now, hopping through, going back and forth. I talked probably 40 alliances now on my list, and there's just like no reason to do conflict. There's like no incentive. Like, why do I not want? Sure, it's like human nature argument as well, right? But I just think that it's just sad. It's just sad, right? Because like people want to have fun, the content creators want to do stuff, the folks um that want to engage in content, they're just disincentivized, and it takes so much time. Dave can talk about it, Keith can talk about it, Rots. It takes hours of work a week. Why do I want to start reffing structures if I can play Fortnite, or if I can play Battlefield, and I can get to have just as much fun?
And
Why?
Battlefield chat, by the way.
Like, my entire half of my alliance is rather playing Battlefield at this time, because like, oh, we have to form up for 30 minutes. You may get a fight, you may not get a fight. It's just like, I don't know. I feel like it's very, very unfortunate, the situation that we're in. And I think the solution, though, and Rots has mentioned this as well because he's a very smart guy, is that, and Keith and Dave, you too, throughout our discussions, is it's non-timer based content generators. There are sites that people fight over. There's things that people gravitate to. That it timers help bigger groups because they can plan, allow the spunky groups, as I call them. I don't know a better adjective than spunky, but the reactive groups, the groups that can flash form and work with smaller numbers and punch up, because the blocks benefit, or bigger groups benefit, when there's preparation in place, because they can maximize all their strengths. Groups that can be reactive to it changes in the environment quickly, that is a different type of group. And I think PvE sites, what are sites that are like that? Battlefields and ice heists. The problem with Pochman as well is a lot of it is that, which is also how the original site design, in my opinion, was, is that it was always there. You always have 3 sites. There wasn't a time delay, right? You couldn't flash form. You just constantly went to site after site after site. And that repetition allows bigger groups to capitalize on it. If it's not repetitive,
So
then you have to improvise, and improvisation is that space where smaller groups can thrive.
So
So
Battlefields kind of do that now, but I think the core of like changing them how they work or whatever they may be. But the other question around low sec, when it comes to that point, we can talk about Battlefields and maybe they're not as. And I'll tell you, since I moved back to low sec with YoungPuke, it hasn't. Battlefields don't seem to be as like as much of a content driver as they used to be. And I wonder if in part of that is to do, and I know I was reading through your forum post around one of the top issues for you is fact war AWACSing. Like, does that drive some of the issues to why that content in low sec specifically isn't being driven?
yeah, and I think, dude, you're just triggering me with those words, brother. So like the dude, I've been thinking about this endlessly, and I've been watching everyone's interviews, and I think it is because like you have restrictions. They can't really use crazy capitals, right? It's dead space that helps, but I think more dead space is not always the answer. I think we need like high risk, high reward sites. A site that pays out 100 billion. It's not a Satio, which is min max. I mean, sure, they've had a fight right now in Aga. Minotaur Fleet Alliance dropped on Big AB or something. I don't remember. Just literally just happened. But like that's rare. That's like very uncommon. And so if you make novel sites that everybody knows, and you have to have guts to put expensive ships on grid, but you're rewarded for that risk, I know many groups that would come back for that type of content. I know a lot of people that would do that, right? And I think more dead space is great. Maybe add a dead space small gang PvE site between between like 5 to 20 people in wormholes and non-faction warfare lowsec and NPC null, right? Like add something that these small groups that you don't need to, you can do it for 2-3 hours, make a billion ISK and call it a day, right? And that type of novelty and content is what makes Battlefield so great. Because maybe it spawns in like Genesis, for example, and you can run these sites in Genesis, and they spawn every 20 minutes, and people can test over them or something, or it pops on the agency or something, and groups have a reason to go there. I think that would promote a lot of small groups. But like, how do we fix it in null sov? Years. And I think we know the solutions. I think there's a lot of agreement on the CSM and people that are running for these solutions. It's just, personally, I'm just tired of the conversation, because as long as we continue to have talking about long range projection over and over and over again, it stalls the conversation, it stalls the game, it stagnates the game, and then we're sort of stuck. And as long as we're
You
stuck here, we're not going to move forward. And CCP has to take it by the guts and make a decision. And if it's fine, say it's fine. Let people unsub. Don't give people false hope. Let people say this is the new status quo. You're done iterating on it, so we can have people can make the best decision possible for them.
and
Sorry.
I have a question for you. Do you think like the change when you talk about long range projection, some of the things you discuss, do you think this is like, are these topics generally a general consensus as you being CSM last year, like among the other CSM members, like, hey, we want to see change there. We don't have to go into whether or not they agree with the changes proposed, because I wonder where my question more goes is how effective, and I know you've accomplished some things as CSM, how effective has the CSM been in driving these changes, right? And is
I mean,
that something we can look at, like, hey, is that going to change this year? That kind of thing. Talk to us a little bit about that, and like the chat, like understand, like, does the CSM, what have we done, and how effective has it been?
I think I'm not going to speak for others, like their
Yeah.
positions, but I think the general vibe is that long range projection is a problem.
Mhm.
I think CCP understands that vibe. Um, I think we brought it up pretty easily. However, it's like nuanced, right? Like it's not an easy solution. However, a solution needs to be implemented and see how we react. And plus, CCP, kudos to them, is kudos to them, is really, how do I phrase it?
Receptive.
Like receptive. Like they're willing to listen to us. Whether that involves implementation, right? Like that's a longer discussion or larger discussion. But I think the vibe is like it's not healthy. And do I think I'm not like one of these people like, oh, we just need to change ansiblexes and everything is fine, right? And I'm like, that's not my take at all. I think it's a multifactorial problem. And I think this is where Rots is right, following a previous stream on Untethered, which I think that was unjust because you were trying to get to the bigger issues. Even if you fix projection, it is a multi-stepped problem. And as long as we focus on step one, we're not talking about the other steps.
The
Time zone
puzzle piece
tanking,
conversation.
the
Yeah.
puzzle piece. Yeah, it's the
I
puzzle
was
piece.
like, there's a lot more corners than just one.
Yeah, and it is one corner, right? But like, I feel like that's the first corner. Then we can move on to the following corners, right? And I just, again, like, I got so mad for you, dude. It was just unfair.
Look
But
at Puke bringing in the passion, dude. I love it.
We give a crap.
Yeah, exactly. I know it's true. We give a crap. And Gideon's right? Gideon's in here. Gideon's on the same page, right? Like it's such a it's a multifaceted problem, but one that's like what's the one ring, right? The one ring of the problems is projection, is long range projection. And like Kaz and I and Zentage and I, we have these discussions like all the time, right? Like, we talk about this, our vision for Sov. Kaz and I agree. Like for Sov warfare, like we're on the same page. It should be conquest. Should feel like conquest. It shouldn't feel like bitch work, right? And
Yeah.
Tosising is bitch work.
Feels like
You know, like
babysitting.
it's babysitting, right? If the defending entity is like, I'm gonna let this keep star die. It's like I'll make more ISK the next week from ratting taxes. I'm not gonna, risk titans and supers. Like whatever. Let's just kill this floodplain, right? And I'm not saying it's just one group. Multiple groups have done this, right? But I'm saying like the mentality and focus. Conquest should feel like you're under siege. Imagine like, you know, if you're under siege, this is crazy. I'm not endorsing this. I'm just saying as a hypothetical, just asterisk. Imagine you can't leave your space if you're under siege. Imagine that if someone starts sieging your space, it's like an actual siege, and you're unable to leave. You cannot leave your region.
Like a blockade.
Like a
Maybe
blockade.
maybe not the entire region, but an example. You can't go X amount of gates outside of your region into the people that are attacking you. So, for instance, because you wouldn't ever want to stop people leaving their space entirely, else they're just not play. But things like a good example is EFM to GQ. If they made it so, say, we were blockading Horde and they had to do something to be able to go further than EFM, for instance. They not take the system, but destroy something or whatever,
Yeah, exactly. And I want to challenge somebody in the comment. Syncline387 says, "Can we siege low sec then, or is it just punish null?" How is this idea punishing null? Your leadership is bored. Your FCs are bored. We want you to get better content. A healthy nullsec is a healthy game, right? Let's get more fights. Let's get more content. Like, it's not us or them, brother. It's us. Because if one content system dies, the rest dies. So it's not either or. We're all in the same fucking boat, brother. Like, stupid us versus them. And that's what people that want the status quo to remain want that. Because if we are against each other, even though we're all on the same page, that means stagnation happens. Like what David said, it's an idea. Is it the right idea? I don't know. But let's talk about it and see if it could work. Right? Like change something. Let's get new things in the game.
yeah, because
Um
sorry, the best example for this sort of thing at the moment is the Imperium and Horde situation, because at the moment there's no greater threat to your crabbers or whatever. Yes, we're killing supers of theirs. They killed one super of ours since we moved in. Good on them. Had to collect that little bit while I'm saying this talk, but it's life as usual. I could go out there now, my dread, and crab away. There's no reason to be afraid of Horde being next door, because there's no reason for them to want to come into us. Because why? It's like I could take a fleet and ref a fort right now, but why waste my time? You know?
Exactly. And like that's the thing, like Dave, like when you try to take a fleet out, or Keith or Rots, right? Like I want it to be the case, or in my vision, or our vision, because I think we all agree, so you get more fights, right? Like if you have a new player and you blue ball them for 2 hours, right? No one talks about that really. Like they go on a new fleet, they don't get any content. Why am I playing this game as an alpha? Why am I playing this game as an omega? Like there needs to be more options for fighting. And it's awesome. Like I saw that Nyx dunk you guys did. That was pretty cool. Zintage showed me the video and stuff. But like that was awesome. But like instead of just dunks, like why not slam 100v100 battle cruisers into each other? Why can't they be smaller objectives where people fight? And maybe it's a cultural thing. Maybe it's a min-max. I mean, it's up to discussion, but creating more opportunities in nullsec where you can have those types of engagements. So, the people like the Muskies, the Rots, the Henrys, who's that guy, that big goon FC? Not just Vintage. I'm forgetting his name. Not Dave. Who?
Asher, Apple, Arc,
Alterari,
Alterari,
Arcadios. There you go.
used to run
Jesus.
sevens. Hold on, let me
We
just...
make fun of him too. It's okay.
Goes on 4-hour-long fleets whenever you're on an Acadia.
Yeah, but like it's a 4-hour-long fleet, right? And like if you don't kill anything, right? Like that's, and sure, like sure, like there's issues with that in general, but like I just think there needs to be more objectives in null that makes conquest feel like conquest, and if you don't defend something and you lose, it makes a big difference in your sov. You know, like just put the like more risk, not even risk, like things that people care about. Like Intosising is so like, have you been on Intosising fleet? I'd rather look at paint dry.
It's
You know,
honestly paint drying is way funner.
Funnily enough, a lot of Goon FCs literally go, "That's below my pay grade," because what's the point of having like? I mean, we occasionally do it, but what's the point of having Ark or me or Zintage or Asher even covering an Intosis up where there's going to be no fight? We could send a skirmish commander and they can learn how to Intosis. Yes, we'll do ones when we're invading because there will be a fight, but there is no point in us doing that because it's just going to be watching paint dry, and we quite frankly have better things to be doing.
We have another guest with us, by the way. We got Gideon to join us. We have another CSM candidate. He was, reached out to him. So we have another guest to join the show. We got him in here to add to this conversation. But to continue on Gideon, I'll give you a second. I just want to say this one thought. In today's point, it's like, hey, bigger guys don't want to go do it. So they make the smaller guys go do it. So if I'm a skirmish FC or somebody else, I have to go do that. And I'm like, this isn't the content that I want to FC. This is what I want to do. So it takes away the enjoyment of a smaller guy. It's like, why do I want to go build to something when I have to do this bitch work, basically, to progress the alliance? Now, some guys do it and they're like, hey, this is the penance I have to play. But if you're in the game for a long time and you've played Eve for a long time, that's not how I wanted to spend my time, right? That's not the FCing and the content that I wanted to FC early on. So
you just talked about soft warfare, right? And I don't think actually the mechanics themselves lead to bad fights. Like splitting the grids, having multiple objectives you fight over, not just a single grid fight, is actually a really, really good mechanic. The reason why people really, really hate it, it takes forever if it's uncontested, and it takes an eternity if it is contested. It just doesn't end. And I think the Entosis stuff is actually fine. They just need to higher the percentage once more. They did it once, it was 5% per Entosis node. Now it's, I think, 7 or 8% per node. If you go to 12% or 15% per node and just make the uncontested and the contested fights just shorter time-wise, I think a lot of more people would enjoy that. And the second thing is, you talked about projection earlier, and the reason why Entosis really, really sucks at the biggest of scales is if you Entosis in tie-dye, it's not just an eternity, it's just gonna take your whole evening, and you just cannot expect a normal line member that is joining a fleet to be there for 5-6 hours, and in the end effect, you have switched one space flag and you see another 500 pop up. Because if tie-dye hits and you're trying to toast and you're trying to move multiple fleets, it's atrocious. And I would say two issues, and that's why you talked about projection not being able to fix issues. If projection is so bad that every fight deteriorates to numbers where heavy tie-dye hits, even if there's not really anything of value on grid, it is just boring. It is dragging to UFCs. It's boring for UFCs. It's boring for my group that stages from Farah and tries to maybe hit your supply lines from stragglers, because I don't want to sit in 10% tie-dye, killing a rock battleship that is worth 300 million. Like, nobody wants to deal with that. Nobody wants to be part of that. UFCs are getting bored by it more and more. So I think it's just a general issue. If we have fixed the stacking and projection issue that the fights are so big that tie-dye hits, I think soft is very, very easily fixable on a time basis just by hiring the percentages. I don't think the multiple grids and toasting per se is a bad mechanic, because there's a lot of gameplay involved and a lot of small stuff that gets involved. And I've been part of Nightblocks before, right? And my corporation used to be a corporation in these Entosis fights. We were like a very important tool, even as a small group, because we could handle ourselves. My pilots could handle themselves. We made the enemy's life hell just by knowing the mechanics and just by exploiting mistakes that they are doing, that we are aware of, that they maybe have not been aware of because they haven't engaged with soft warfare. And I think that is so much more enjoyable than shooting a citadel or a keepstar for 2 hours and getting shot by enemy keepstars, people on a single grid. So I don't think the soft mechanics are bad. I think the circumstances around the soft mechanics make the soft mechanics bad. And this is why YoungPuke earlier said, like, it's UFCs also complaining about this. Maybe they don't even realize it. It's the combination of projection, stacking, and the mechanics all together just lead to a very bad ecosystem.
yeah, 100%.
Another
Well said. Well
hold on.
said.
Another thing.
We just end the stream there, literally. Like that's
Just drop the mic.
literally
We're
drop
out.
the mic. We're out. Like,
But-
but no, like,
Pretty much.
But this is the thing, right? Like, so many of us agree, right? Like, there's just, and it's like, I don't know. Like, do we need to do a poll in the game and say 75% of EVE players agree on this? We're gonna pass this referendum. Maybe what we do is
I tried doing that. Like I made that post. Like I had the Nereo's fraternity leader, right? Like I wrote with Gobbins. Gobbins was preoccupied when I made that post, and I had them co-signing a post with FCs from all walks of life. There are people in the Reddit comment section. If CCP scrolls down, like Securitas from Horde, he read the post and he was like, I don't like fatigue, but I see your problem. If there wouldn't be fatigue, I would co-sign it. And then I write in a reply, I didn't even mention fatigue. All I said is we need to deal with the speed of projection, because the speed of projection is the issue, and every fix needs to address the speed of projection.
Yeah.
Whatever that is, I don't care, but it needs to be addressed. And the second line from Securitas is, yeah, let me co-sign, and I added him to the list of co-signers, right? Like, this is so universal across FCs or people in nullsec that I don't think there's no debate anymore, and I don't get why it's not getting fixed for 4 years by now, or however long it is.
Somewhat I want to rewind on set to the Sob thing. Another issue with Sob at the moment is because the massive sledgehammer they took to hacks a while ago, none of the meta is conducive to doing a constellation-wide fight, because you will get stuck.
It's another one of those puzzle pieces. It's true. I mentioned hacks in mine. Like I'm not saying I want Munins again. I'm saying I want something that
Like
lets
the
me
Serbs.
run around quicker, than battleships.
Yeah. Like Serbs, where you could have a main battleship fleet engaging the enemy main fleet, and then you've got the Serbs that can either join in that fight but can break away and engage a side objective. Because at the moment, once you're in the fight, you are not going to deal with anything else. And it's a problem.
No, I definitely agree. Excuse me, I was like clearing my throat there. Gideon, I appreciate you coming on chat. If you're curious a little bit more about Gideon's viewpoints, I did drop his CSM post for CSM 20 in the chat, so give that a read. Sounds like Gideon has some great ideas in line with the rest of our guests here. We are coming up here a little bit on the hour. I want to hear closing remarks. Rots, I'm going to start with you, sir. What is the last thing you want to leave our viewers with as they go into voting here soon?
I do this every interview with everyone. Don't be blindsided by candidates last day of voting. Like, do it early. Go look at all of these posts. They spend their time really caring about it, and vote for people who are not inherently in your gameplay that you might think, because we touched on it earlier. Just because you're in nullsec or you're in lowsec doesn't mean that the nullsec or the lowsec or the highsec candidate don't matter. Everything is intrinsically tied together, and YP just mentioned that too. Like, my ticket in Vapor, and most of Vapor members will tell you, we'll vote for a couple friends who talked about things and cared about mechanics, and then we're also going to post and vote for people that represent other communities. So, like, big shout out to like Mick Fightmaster if you're a wormhole candidate, and there's not many that have representation there. Like, support them. YP has proven CSM experience. Gideon has been running as long as I remember, and I love him. Like, there are good people in this game that are running right now that care, and they're not the platforms you're inherently looking for. Trust me, your gameplay's not going away. CCP doesn't need your mechanics. You need some people that are willing to touch things on a finite level and care about that. Vote for those people.
Yeah,
And
100%.
let me just interject short there. Like, yes, most people know me now, maybe for the last few years as a Farah, a small ganger, right? But I have seat for Legacy Coalition. Like, I was part of a coalition. I know why people are there. I helped building up coalitions. When I joined Wrecking Crew and invaded Providence with Wrecking Crew with the Raw Consortium Alliance, I helped building up that alliance from like 600, 700 members as part of their core FC team to 4,000 members with the new Bro Alliance. So it's not like we don't have history somewhere in blocks or FC for blocks. We know what people want there. And I actually want people in blocks to have good content as well. I don't know how many of you got me off a Skyhook because I started stealing your Skyhook. You saw the ping going up. you jump the 2 jumps and you're like, oh, there's somebody that I can fight, and it's just it's a 10-minute timer, so somebody has to respond. I'm gonna take the responsibility, respond to that guy, and I'm gonna try to do the best that I can. And you didn't ping for an FC, because an FC is not gonna come for a Skyhook stealer, but you took the responsibility, and I think a lot of you guys had fun killing me or getting killed. In the end, it's about space explosions, right? So we are not opposed to each other. Like, I want you to thrive, so I have something that I can shoot, and you have something to shoot back at me. I'm specifically somebody who doesn't like camp moons and try to farm miners. I'm looking for the people responding to me to actually get a PvP fight out of you guys. So I don't want you to be bad. I want you to be thriving, so there's something for me to hunt.
And like not just that, like why do we have to hurt the ratters in order to get fights, right? Like why do we have to steal
Agreed.
something in order to get fights? People should want to fight because they feel like they have to, and it's part of the culture, right? Like why do I have to annoy you? You know what I mean? Like there's a presupposition there, right? It has to be bothersome, and I don't know. Like I just even that whether it's a cultural thing or not, it's just I find that
Do we-
strange.
I know we're like typically we slot ourselves for about an hour for this, but I don't mind taking this a little longer, assuming Dave is okay with. Let's move my mic here. Assuming Dave's okay with it. Do we want to take a second to take a moment and address the other side of this coin? We talk a lot about PvP and space explosions, as Gideon said, but do we like what about changes as far as PvE and EVE Online is boring? I honestly have never. I have never got out and made a concerted effort to go rat or make any ISK in this game. I just used my credit. That's what I do because I don't want to do that. It's boring. And I feel like the PvE content, the whole side of it, like the other side of the game, require unless you're into market trading or this, that can be fun if that's your thing. But beyond that, from just going to rat, like comparative to other games, it's boring. It sucks.
I've thought about this a lot. Like I had an interview recently. So like the reason I PvP, like from the base level, I started out in PV as a player going, okay, let's mine in this wormhole, and I got mana core bombed in some wormhole site, and I was like, that's what I want to do. It's because it's variable, because it's fun, because it's different every night. Right now, you tell me to go mission. God, I could go off about this. I hate the storytelling in this game. It's just repetitive. 12 missions later, I'm back in the same loop. And I'm like, I can just do that in real life, you know? Like,
Right.
if I want to, I can just go pick the same tomatoes out in the yard. But like for real, the stories aren't as enriching and fulfilling anymore. So for me, I'm a story-driven player. If I'm going to go rat, I recently discovered Smart Bomb ratting. I was making the money like crazy, but it still bored me to death. I need more experiences. I love storyline content. I went off about like there's all this lore. You go hit the descriptions on regions on the mapping game, which by the way, they're changing the map soon. And like, you know, my favorite region back in the day, I was a little guy. I went out to Detorid and I heard and read on Detorid, oh, there's these weird spatial anomalies. Went out there, found nothing. Like everything's a dead end in the storytelling. Give me something that's variable and fun, and then also give me something risky. Give me something engaging. Get a whole bunch of money for putting my big thing on grid and risking it. Those are the things I like. It's YP has been mentioning all of that. It fits every community anywhere in EVE. That can be reflected upon and done right.
To some extent, all PvE content, even in other games, at a certain point becomes repetitive because you are going to design fits so you can run these sites very, very efficient without any risk to yourself. We can see that with Abyssal Space.
Sure.
At the start, everybody was like, oh, how do I make my fit?
But games aren't at CSM 20 like this one is. I think over 20 CSM years, we should have something different all the time. Events should be a thing. It should be variable.
Yeah. And I think one thing too, like a big thing, sorry, just chime in real quick. Like I know like our platform really focuses on low sec, null sec, and wormholes, but high sec is the most repetitive area space in the entire game. Right? You have level 4, you have these level 1 to 4 missions that everybody runs. You have the same routines. Like it hasn't been touched for like a decade plus, you know? Like and like I wrote this long Reddit post. This guy was like wrote a very heartfelt letter about like how the state of high sec, like what's wrong with high sec. And it's just like every time I'm reading about this shit, I'm like, holy fuck, we need to spend like a year just iterating and updating high sec, because if that's the first PvE you experience is high sec. And if that is not good and updated to the modern era, and there's not easy way for you to get a group home fronts, sure, I guess. But like where's your group experience in high sec right away? How do you get into that? And I know it sounds weird coming from me, because like I literally can't get into any high sec anymore in Puke because I'm like -10 to all the factions, but like they need to spend a year updating high sec, and like how do you and iterating it to the modern era, or maybe in one expansion, right? Like fix a lot of the broken crap in it. I mean, ganking, there's no explanation when you get ganked, and we're sure we can talk about if ganking's healthy or not or whatever, but like I don't know, like there's just that's part of it. It's all connected.
And to say also, like, Gideon isn't wrong. Like, there is a finite limit to this, but
And
I would love to
yeah,
see the effort
I was disrupted.
from their side, But like, you're not
I
wrong. You're right.
yeah, what I'm saying is not that PvE cannot be more enticing. Of course it can be, right? But I think for most players, it's not necessarily PvE that is gonna be the exciting part. The exciting part comes if it's a PvE VP experience, like Skyhooks are a good example in my opinion. Because for us from Farah right now, it very often is sometimes just a PvE experience because we go into a dead end region that nobody currently lives in because Nalsec has floodplains over 5 regions. We poke the Skyhook, but now we have 10 minutes that we are stuck there and we are looking, is somebody coming? Is somebody coming? And suddenly there's a wormhole group that we never interacted with before because we usually hunted Nalsec and Retas. But now we are stealing a Skyhook, and now another wormhole group sees that we are stealing something, and they're like, I can shoot that guy. I know that guy, and he stole my last Skyhook. I'm gonna steal his. I'm gonna get my friends. And now I have fights on Skyhooks with other wormhole groups that we didn't used to interact with. But for the most part, we are stealing because it's a PvE experience and we get some money out of it. And at a good end, it leads to an interaction that didn't used to be there. So I think thinking more in the line of very, very valuable PvE that very, very quickly can switch to PvP experience, I think that is a very, very healthy way to address things. And YoungPuke and me were discussing this on another Discord for LowSec stuff. I want something like a raiding mechanic in LowSec, because currently there's no reason for me to go out of Farah, go into LowSec and hunt in LowSec, unless there is a winter event or some event going on that directly goes into one constellation of LowSec. But what is there in LowSec? Nobody's raiding there. The miners can warp off. You cannot even bubble them. So good luck. You got one retriever. Very, very rewarding for roaming for 1 hour. And if you find something and you shoot it, your security status gets into gutter, and I can no longer haul my stuff from Jita with my single character to re-gear for the next PvP experience. So LowSec currently is very, very punishing for anybody to even delve into it. There is no reward, there is no raiding, there is no local environment to interact with. And I think a Skyhook-like mechanic in LowSec, like a raiding, it doesn't have to be Skyhooks, but like a raiding mechanic in LowSec would be very, very helpful for LowSec. And I think raiding type mechanics, as you were saying earlier, on a much, much, much bigger scale, would actually be very, very healthy for blocks. If there is like a raiding mechanic that pays enough for 30 to 50 characters, where there's really, really money on the line, suddenly there would be something for the FCs that are maybe don't fight the biggest battles, but for Skirmish FC to go for. Hey, let me take a Cyclone fleet, go to that site, 30, 50 people in enemy space, and we are trying to steal that. And they respond or they don't respond. And the response can be super, super big, and then you have an escalation point that can actually go to an organic big fight, right? So because with 50 people,
highlight a strategic objective, give a reward for doing a thing. I totally agree with you.
One thing I think really killed some of the more lower skirmish dudes going out and actually getting content is when they changed the Skyhook raiding to be what it is now, where only a few Skyhooks are available, because
that is not a massive issue.
Such a pain to get to.
For PvE experiences, as for PvP and getting fights, it's actually better than it used to be. I agree that the original implementation was more Wild West, and it could lead to very, very small gang Wild West fights. The current implementation with the 3-day vulnerability window does lead to a healthier mechanic, because I know there's at least 60 million at the moment worth of magmatic gas in the lava planet, so it's worth for me to go there and try to attempt that solo, or with like a small group. So having it in a timer window also gives the stealer an opportunity, because he knows that there's at least some value into them, and it didn't get stolen 5 minutes before.
And I have a question though for this group on PvE, and we're gonna kind of take it out here in a second. But kind of last topic: are the payouts for PvE in line with like the inflation we've seen with the prices of
Or
how
not.
much your Titans are and that kind of thing? Because
No
I'll tell
way.
you,
Only
Super
for the new
for-
content.
Only
Only
new
for the new
content.
content.
exactly. So like I can even talk to Observatory Flashpoints. That's the only PvE I've really done in Eve is in Pochfin. And that was what I think it's like 150 mil, 125 mil. What does that buy me after 20 minutes of my time? That buys me a T3 destroyer.
Even
Maybe?
even the crab beacons, though. Sorry for interrupting. People are going to talk. They make quite a fair amount of ISK, like better than most things. But to make a okay amount of ISK, say to plex your accounts and stuff, you really need 2 capital pilots to be able to run 6 beacons. Is what I found to plex one character. Say like me at the moment, I don't have that much time to play, so to plex even just one of my accounts, I need my 2 dread pilots to be able to do 6 beacons to be able to do it. And then you need a plex 2 characters. And it raises the.
It's even worse, right? Because so much content has just completely been forgotten. It's not even worth running. And some of like you're saying nullsec and nullsec retting. Like I would never ret or crab beacon at the moment. If you really just want to make ISK and not care about anything without disruptions, you go to a 0.5 system in high sec. You do it on an account that hasn't died yet because otherwise Genkers will hunt you, and you just run abyssal sites. There's so much more payout than anything you can do currently in nullsec. It's reliable, you can repeat it, and why would I even risk getting shot in nullsec at that point if I can just make more money in highsec? And it's not just abyssal T5s. I think highsec incursions still have a very high payout, and this is why one of my main points in my campaign was risk to reward is super hasn't been looked at for a long time, I think, from CCP,
Yep.
because in the past we had we addressed missions earlier as old content that doesn't pay well. You have a level system, right? You have level 1 to 4 in highsec, and level 5 missions only exist in low sec. Why? Because there's such a high payout, you have to risk something, you have to be in open space, you have to be attackable if you run those level 5 missions. And Abyssal's completely I decided it was even more ridiculous, right? Like you could run them in 1.0 systems everywhere in high sec. Like the risk part has completely been forgotten to the reward part. And that leads to regions like nullsec and lowsec not being worth it because you can make more money in perfect safety. And I don't think that's good or healthy for the game if people are min-maxing themselves out of the ecosystem.
I will say, when they increased the bounty amount, when they initially messed up Stormbringers, it made it slightly better. But then when they sorted the Stormbringer problem and lowered it down, it removed the amount of reward that was suddenly making anything ratting in nullsec worthwhile. I'm not saying you don't make a lot of ISK in null, because you do. But is it worth my PNI that with its fit as well is probably worth about 10, 11 bill to sit on that grid? Not really. Will I do it anyway? Yes, because drop me, please. But, you know, it's not worth the asset you're putting on grid.
And Moonface just said in chat that C5s are paying a lot of money and you get a lot of money out of them. I think wormholes are actually somewhat of a part of that problem. What do wormholers do if they want to make money? They crit all their entrances. They build a huge big donut so nobody's contesting them, and people min-max themselves out of interacting with other people. So areas of space that give you the most control, be it highsec or wormhole space, are currently the highest paying areas of space. So and areas that don't give you any control, like lowsec or nullsec, gives you some more control than lowsec. To be fair, they pay jack shit. Sorry, it's just not worth staying in nullsec and farming and making yourself a target if stuff that doesn't make you a target is paying so much higher.
Yeah. And I will say with wormholes, C5 wormholes, I know somebody said just take them. There's not just taking them because there's a very select
such a
group
ball
that
ache.
has they have
Like-
a lockdown on those C5s. They have structures in there and it's not visible because it's always under different alt groups because it's somebody with his 10 alts that are farming him. But you hit those farm holes, you're gonna get the wormhole block
Like
slapped to your face
we
the moment you take them.
we just had a discussion about making fights more interesting and easier to get. Easier to get and interesting are not two things I attribute to a fight in a wormhole. Pain in the ass is what I attribute to a fight in the wormhole.
It's interesting at first, the first time you do it, and then the novelty wears off really quickly. But no, I definitely appreciate the insight here. I did want to give PvE a little bit of a touch. I know the game is so interconnected. It's hard to talk about one subject and not immediately start talking about PvP. And I think that's what we all love about EVE Online. And that's one of the reasons why I love the game. Dave, I'm going to hand it off to you, though, to take us out here.
Okay, I wasn't prepared for that because I didn't know when we were ending.
It's okay. We're just kind of...
So let's go
The
back
shocked
to the
face.
let's go back to the final thoughts here. Let's start off with Rots again. Any new final thoughts?
I'm about to go do another interview with CCP. These are two of my favorite friends. Go check out other candidates and check out my thing. Like, share, subscribe, whatever. Have fun. Enjoy EVE.
Okay, Gideon.
Thanks for having me on short notice, and yeah, I hope you guys are doing well. And behind the scenes, Rots and YoungPuke, we have been talking about these issues before, right? In different coalitions or in different chats, and we all kind of agree. And it's not just these people. I've also talked to people in the biggest of night blocks, be it Imperium or be it Horde, be it Fraternity. So hopefully CCP will listen once.
Hopefully.
Okay, Puke.
Yes. So I just want to say, yes, obviously you can vote for me as well, but there's a lot of really good candidates this year, guys. If you're watching this on stream or not, these two lovely gentlemen are very strong and passionate candidates for the areas of space. We need diversity on the CSM. It is what it is. Yes, sometimes the odds are stacked against us, but we need to be able to push for change. And the way you get for change is you have 10 slots on your ballot. You fill up every 10 slots. For maybe it's not a person that's in your space. I'm not a null secker. Rots doesn't live in low sec right now. Gideon lives in a wormhole, or in Thera, a magical wormhole. You know, like, have diversity of groups, have diversity of thoughts, and you know it will be. It's really what made this successful, the CSM 19, and I encourage you to use all 10 of your slots. Pick the candidates. The only way you waste your vote is you don't pick 10. Do it.
Okay then, Jeff. Keith.
I don't know who Jeff is, but
Never heard of him.
Anyway, no, I appreciate it. I want to say thank you to our CSM candidates down below for coming to join us. Gideon, I appreciate you hopping on with short notice. We potentially could get you on later to give you a little more airtime if you'd like. But Rots and Puke as well, thank you for hopping on. Love to have you on. You both have been on before, so I appreciate that. And as Puke said, go out and vote. Be a good citizen in EVE Online. And as somebody said, new slogan, I don't care, make EVE great again. Mega. I like it. I don't know. Some people might not, but hey, whatever. Dave.
Yeah, my final bit before I do the housekeeping, as the goon here, for all those goons watching, you have the right to vote exactly the way you're told, but you should check people out. But I've got to toe the party line. And yeah, we'll see you next time. We have I believe Rose will be on sometime in the next few days doing another one of her interviews. And that's all we've got at the moment, actually. But we will see you guys next time. Goodbye.
Yeah. See you, everybody.
See you later.
doing a fleet. I'm gonna go shoot. Yeah. Yeah, I think it went good. Right, I'm gonna. Yeah, who's the front runner?